councillors. One option is for me to amend Resolution 2 and provide 4 principles that would underpin our approach on the pools, or is the preference to stick with James' approach and that just to wait till a workshop in the new year? The only advantage of providing it now is it enables them to be able to do the review and come for more information. Councillor Stenson.
I support the inclusion of what you said, Mayor Nick, but I defer to Rohan because he's always so good.
By having a discussion around those principles, it's given us sufficient guidance. Yeah. And I can get the mood of the room, and I think I've got guidance, and we can take that forward.
I think it's been a really helpful discussion. I'm going to take the guidance from Peter Rainey, and that is that we're arguing over an amount of a few $1,000s per year relative to the fees. We're going to have a workshop next year. And so the progress forward is I'm going to move from, if there are no further questions, I'm going to move the 2 recommendations from our officers. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Rollo. We're now, thank you very much for your work. The motion has been moved and seconded. Just in terms of my own comments, it is my view that when the officers do the review, a few of the things that we would like them to take into account is that we would like our aquatic facilities to be priced around the middle order of what are available at aquatic facilities around New Zealand. We do want to have a good relationship with our contractor. We do have a bias towards providing facilities for our children to be able to participate, and we're also very mindful of any cost on ratepayers. We look forward to our officers doing further work on this. What this does is hold the fees at what they are and enables our officers to come back with some further work to resolve this issue for the longer term. Is there any further discussion? Thanks. Councillor Stallard.
Thanks, Matt. Just briefly, it is complicated, and I'm not sure that an appeal from one club through the long-term plan, and then the information we have before us is sufficient for me to feel that the fees are unreasonable or disproportionate. We know that 1/3 of the hireage is from whole pool, which is amongst the lowest in the country, and 2/3 is from lanes, which is high, but entry fee is not charged. So putting that all together, I'm not sure they're getting a really raw deal. And my preference would be to, if CLM wants to keep the fee lower off their back, that's fine, but otherwise to review it when the new contract comes in.
Thanks, Councillor Stallard. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I'd like some information too. So I hear wonderful things about CLM over there and in the community. It's a beat up on CLM. I'd like to be able to defend them and comfortably be able to do that. And I want to be able to explain why and how, and stop the beat up, and possibly protect staff as well.
And I think I would like to make the point, because I've heard some beat up of CLM, and remind people that we set the fees and charges, and CLM are required to deliver on those. And I think some people beat up on the fact that they're charging certain things, and it's a council. That's a council decision. So, and they're our partner. So I think that's would be good for you to support them.
Councillor Rainey, I'm expecting a long
I've heard time and time again that we set the fees. I'd be interested to know how many councillors around the table knew that the fee was $40.10 per hour on the lane.
We do it every year. I'm sure you'll pay more attention next time.
prior to this discussion and the people coming to us at the LTP. Okay, 1.
I think that is a reminder of how many different fees that we're setting right across a very wide business of the council. I'm still 2 years in as mayor, discovering new things that we do and what we charge for. If there's no further comments, then I'm going to put the 2 resolutions. Those that are in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. We now move to the item number 7.9 with respect to the adoption of the Community Services Activity Management Plan, and invite Martin and Andrew.
Kia ora koutou. I get the privilege of presenting this report. But I have to say that most of the work has been done by our team who are sat behind us and are ready to answer any questions. So this report concerns the adoption of the Community Services Activity Management Plans. There are three in front of you, which are the Parks and Facilities Activity Management Plan, Community Partnerships, and the Arts, Heritage and Events Activity Management Plan. The report highlights changes that were made as a result of the long-term plan process. We're open to questions.
Any questions from colleagues? Councillor Sanson.
Thanks, Mayor Nick, through the chair. I'm just trying to, I've got my question, but first of all, just to speak to interest. So I am actually on the board of Te Tauihu Community Development Agency. But my question in regards to that is just a question of clarification about an earlier decision that was taken in the year when I had nothing to do with them. And then my partner is on the board of the Nelson Tasman Environmental Trust. But again, it's just a question of clarification, and I didn't participate in that decision. Or if I did, I declared the interest. Neither of them are pecuniary, and I sent my questions through. So my two questions are, well, one was the correction. I guess that's the easy one, and I just want to check that that correction's okay. Yeah, great. And then I guess the second one is just the funding for both the Community Development Agency and the Environmental Trust seem to be missing from the section in the AMP, page 380, 5.6 community partnerships. Missing from the section appears to be noting of the agreed funding for the Community Development Agency and the Tasman Environmental Trust. And I looked back at the decision that was taken and the 27th of June council meeting, and both were itemised. So I'd just like to understand why they're being treated differently to other items that were actually also in that 27th of June agenda as decisions to change or allocate new funding.
Through the chair, kia ora, and thank you for the question. In regard to the Community Development Agency funding, that was mentioned in the executive summary, but we didn't reference it a second time in the cover report. So acknowledge we could have done that, but it is certainly in the executive summary of the AMP. In regard to the work being done by the Tasman Environment Trust, that actually sits in the Solid Waste Activity Management Plan. So you should find reference to it in that particular one rather than the Community Partnerships Activity Management Plan.
Okay, so did you say that the Tasman Environment Trust partnership sits in solid waste? Okay, that's fine. With the Community Development Agency, though, it is, I think, through the long-term plan discussions and deliberations, it was identified as being having like funding, a line for funding, and so I just want to check that that is actually what's happened.
Through the chair, yes, that is in the budget.
So it's not being taken out of the community partnerships pot that all the community groups apply to.
If I could just
lengthy discussion about that.
Yeah, no. Thanks for sending the questions through. So, as Mr. Preston Thomas just said, it is actually in the AMP summary, which was attached to the report. So, Mr. Preston Thomas just said that it's not actually referenced in the cover report itself, but it is referenced in the summary and in the AMP itself. Is that right?
Yes, the summary is part of the AMP.
Yeah.
Great. I was just checking why it was treated differently to other things that were also in that decision. That's all. It seemed to be inconsistent.
Can I just ask a question of colleagues, just for me to be able to manage the agenda between now and 5 o'clock? One of the items that we have in confidential business has got people that have come in from outside in respect of one of the statement of expectations. What I'm just sort of trying to do is I could say to them, hey, look, we're not going to get there by 5 o'clock and schedule it for our future meeting. So I'm just wanting a bit of a steer. And if you could indulge me and just do by show of hands, how many colleagues were wanting to speak or raise questions about the state of the environment report. Just very minor. With respect to the other issues on the agenda, no, it's a bit difficult for you to show hands on items that are meant to be in confidential business. I'm just going to try and just push things a little bit and see if we can get there by 5 o'clock.
I'm happy to move these.
Okay. Is there any further questions that have for officers first? Councillor Rollo?
Make this super quick because I owe Andrew some congratulations for the work on the accessibility and the AMP that's going on. And what captured my attention and it lit me up was the work that you're doing at Trafalgar Centre around accessibility there, because that's been a bugbear of mine since I got to council. So thank you very much for the work that you're doing down there.
Well done. Councillor Rainey.
I mean, my company has a financial interest in the current AMP and potentially in the 2024-2034 for arts, heritage and events. So can I ask you to...
I would like to note in the amendment that Councillor Rainey declared an interest with respect to the activity management plan.
I could withdraw
specifically that for the arts, heritage and events. And my recommendation, because I don't think it's going to be a tight vote, is that you abstain.
Yeah, okay. So I'm happy to abstain. Thank you. And that could be noted. Thank you.
Any further questions? I understand Councillor Sanson was happy to move the 3 recommendations. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Rollo. Thank you, officers. All those in favour of those recommendations, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. We now come to the next item on the agenda, which is the receipt of the State of the Environment Report 2019 to 2023. Welcome, Clive and Mandy. Love the report, so informative. And he comes bearing gifts. Where's your Santa hat?
Yeah, well.
It's the most populist move I've seen from a council officer in some time, and my congratulations.
Yes. So we just take the report as read. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? I think Councillor Stallard, you had a question on the report.
Thanks, Mendick. The 8 domains, the marine is not part of that. But you're still happy it fits in somewhere, or is it just not really covered by your work? You know, how do we handle the marine domain outside of estuaries?
Through the chair, it's like a lot of these matters, they're woven in with other domains. So biosecurity covers the Sabella fan worm matters. The estuary, of course, is the fringe of the coastal environment. So we deal with it there. But with the coast, if you're thinking more into the bay, no, it's not covered in this report on this occasion. It could be in future, but not on this.
Okay, thank you. So are we doing work in the bay? We're doing work and they're just not reporting on it in this report, or we're not doing work in the bay?
So through the chair, we are doing work in the coastal environment. Harry Allard is working with Cawthron and other organisations, but it's not work that is long-term monitoring that we can report on with this State of the Environment report.
Okay, thank you. And finally, the shift from this sort of omnibus report to doing 1 domain per year, are you happy that if it's 8 years between domains, then is that the way it works, and is that okay by you, or is that too long?
through the chair, we would look to have a rolling domains reported on, and I guess we could report on one or two on particular years, just to be able to provide current and relevant information to the council.
Yeah, I mean, I would like, maybe that needs discussion by the governance group, because there might be some domains that we need quite regular updates, whether that's a formal domain one or otherwise. But I just think if there's not a policy around that, like if you're doing 2 per year, then that's every 4 years. That seems no worse than the current setup. But if it is 1 per year and it's every 8 years, and there's no formal structure around that, then I think it needs some consideration.
Can I ask a supplementary of Aaron's question? What is the process going forward about the management of the state of the environment reports? We've noted that we're moving to the domain approach rather than doing a big bang report. Where is the decision made effectively about which domains in which order and what years? Where's that decision made?
So through the chair, that is, officer level, based on priority.
The reason I'm interested and was the architect of the Environment Reporting Act at a national level, am I correct that the reason for shifting to a domain-based reporting rather than a whole reporting is that a decision made was by central government for the national environment report to be on domain-based? Is that correct or not?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that one.
Because the bit would seem to me, as one of the architects of the national system, was that if nationally they're moving to doing marine, climate, rivers, whatever, it would seem to make sense for us to have our environment reporting system synchronised with the work that's being done at a national level by the Ministry for the Environment. No knowledge, no problem. I think what we should take from this discussion, I think the State of the Environment report's a superb piece of work, and it really is valuable. I just think we need to note that there needs to be some discussion about, well, if we're going to change the system into the future, what that might look like. And as Councillor Stellard said, what might be the opportunity for the governance team to have some input into how that's going to work. Councillor Stenson.
Thanks, Mick. Yeah,
Excuse me.
my spidey senses just like alert. So I think I'd quite like to understand, has that decision been made or is it being considered? Because for me, I totally concur with Aaron that 8 years between reports for a specific domain is way too long. Even to me, 5 years seems like a long time. So I'd really like to know what the decision-making process is around how we're going to report back on things.
Through the chair, we're just recovering after this report. We haven't even got to the point of deciding as to which domains, and we're open to having a discussion in more detail about which ones we would report on over the next coming years.
So I'm probably just concur with Aaron then that as long as it's not more, the time frame isn't more than within the 5 years, I'm okay with a different approach. But if it goes beyond that, it's too much. We can't, it's a long time already.
My sense is that council should schedule a workshop, not urgently, sometime in the first half of next year around our future approach to environment reporting. I think Clive is absolutely fair to say, hey, look, we just got this bay blended and we need a breather, and I think that's fair. And I think the sort of information we'd like would be what's government doing, what's other councils doing, and what officers feel, and then some opportunity for councillors to have a bit of discussion so that we can keep up the good work. Deputy Mayor.
Small handful of questions. For all of them, feel free to just say we'll come back to you on that, because I know I missed our briefing on this. Just firstly, within air quality improvements, there's reference to this is page 14. In some areas, our PM 2.5 concentrations are above WHO guidelines, specifically in the Te Hununui Nelson South airsheds. Am I right in thinking that those are the only two airsheds in which we monitor for PM 2.5?
That's correct.
Okay, and then when we're talking about where we're heading, again, with PM 2.5, sort of evaluate our existing monitoring to determine whether Nelson complies with those NES, AEQ and the WHO guidelines. I appreciate this is a monitoring report, but in terms of that monitoring, where is that flowing through to action in reducing the 60 plus exceedances we have each year for PM 2.5?
So through the chair, our science and environment team work closely with our environmental planning team. So the Nelson Air Quality Plan is in their work program for review in the near future. So the science and environment team are involved in identifying the issues and options through that process.
Thanks. And then just quickly on our water monitoring, particularly monitoring of the Mai Tai. I just wonder if you've got any commentary. The one thing I note looking at our monitoring sites, both for bathing and for water quality in general, is they are all relatively upstream in terms of the Mai Tai catchment. So I understand we used to have a monitoring site just south of the Collingwood Street Bridge, which has now come out. So are we getting an accurate picture of the health of the Mai Tai as it primarily exists in the urban area?
So through the chair, we have a monitoring site at the Haven Terrace. So we're doing monitoring in that location.
And I'm just wondering what are we monitoring there into?
My understanding is that we do river flow gauging, river height, and I've just got Paul Fisher, who's actually at home with COVID. He's just sent me a message. So he said it's a key site where we do water quality monitoring, I believe, but we also do downstream intertidal monitoring as well. So he's just typing at the moment. So once I get that response.
Problem is, I saw Paul yesterday and I joked that I'd have a whole bunch of questions for him, not intending to.
Yeah, so he says continuous flow and monitoring dissolved oxygen in that location.
That's at Avon Terrace.
Yes.
Yeah. I would be interested, not for right now, but in some feedback around whether or not we need to be having whether regular or irregular monitoring just at that further south. I know we've got a baseline for where we were just south of Collingwood Street, and from those monitoring sites, that's often where you saw quite a big drop in terms of quality. And I would be interested to know how we're looking in those lower reaches where you're getting the most of the effects of urban development on our river system. So just a general thought for you. Thank you.
So just finally through the chair, he says pH and also E. coli is monitored there. And I'm sure he'll put together a comprehensive email response for you all on that.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks for still listening in.
Thank you. I think that wraps it up. And like I say, we had a very good workshop on this material and we want to have that discussion next year. I'm going to move from the chair, seconded by Councillor Sanson, that we receive the Nelson City Council State of the Environment Report 2019 to 2023. Is that brings the conclusion of the public agenda. I'm going to move from the chair that we move into confidential business, and the resolution has been set out for those items. Have I a seconder?
We need to include externals.
And the motion is going to enable the inclusion of the externals as per the recommendation in our papers to enable those that are part of NELMAC to be able to be included. Seconder from that resolution is councillor Pakipaki. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, say no. That is carried. To be fair to the team from NELMAC, with the indulgence of colleagues, I would like to take the NELMAC item first on the agenda, and that will enable them to be able to depart while we deal with the other 4 items. Is there any objection to be changed